So, what the internet provider gives with one hand, they take away with the other. As soon as I had uploaded my review of last week's Grand Prix, the internet went out again. And we only got it back on Saturday. And today's Tuesday. But I did watch the race. Unfortunately, I also had to work Sunday. And I finished late. Very late. And so I didn't get to watch the race till about 1 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning. And I went to bed afterwards. I didn't stay up to make a video. So I've probably missed the hot time to do this, but here we are anyway. We're going to talk about the second round of the Formula 1 Championship of 2020. This time the Styrian Grand Prix, still in Austria.
Welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport.
This was not a good weekend for Ferrari. And that's probably the main talking point, I think. After qualifying, it was clear Mercedes had a big advantage. No one was really going to catch them. That turned out to be the case. Ferrari had a different approach to matters. Leclerc, well, neither of them qualified well, but Leclerc, it was a stupid move. And at the first corner, well, second corner, it was a very impatient move, is my point. And he took out his teammate Vettel. Both Ferraris out the race by lap 3. This has been disastrous so far for Ferrari. 2 races in, they are 5th in the Manufacturers' Championship. I think Vettel's 15th in the Drivers' Championship after 2 races with Ferrari. That is unheard of for either of them, really. This has got to stop for them. And it's not just a case of the team is doing badly and the drivers aren't performing. Both of those things are kind of true too. But now, this is like the second time in 4 races they've taken each other out. Leclerc apologised, and he's very right to do so. But I think Ferrari might be cursed. That's the only thing I can think of. Because it's not been this bad for a long, long time. You're probably talking early 90s, late 80s, when Ferrari were this disastrously bad. They've got 8 races left in the season to do something. I don't know, because they upgraded the car, didn't seem to help them during qualifying, and they've got no race performance to analyse for it. So they're probably going into Hungary in the same situation they were in Austria. It's not looking good for them. As for everyone else, well, we'll start at the back of the field. Haas are awful. They've taken a backward step from a place that was already dangerously close to a cliff. Because they are nowhere. And Haas were one of the teams making noises about not coming back to Formula 1. If performances don't improve, what reason would they stay? I think a lot of it's brake issues. The man took both cars out the first race, and it looked like Grosjean was struggling with his brakes because he went off again. I think they finished 12th and 13th, and only Williams finished behind them. But Williams are ahead of them in the Manufacturers' Championship because Latifi finished 11th at the last race. So Haas are actually bottom of the pack. As for Williams, they have taken a step forward. Russell, this would be the first time he's ever been involved in the midfield. Briefly, he ran wide. But it's nice to see him up there. He looks very capable. I think Latifi needs more time to get used to the car. But George Russell is doing a very good job. Just needs a bit more experience. But Williams, it's impressive considering they were another team who was saying they were going to struggle. How they've managed to come forward a little bit. And that's actually really impressive. Alfa Romeo, they were a non-factor in this race. I said about Giovinazzi last week, I may have been too harsh on him after his crash in qualifying. May have to take that back. He is a very inconsistent driver now, which was better than last year when he was just bad. He managed to stay ahead of Raikkonen for most of this race, so he did a very good job. But he needs to stop crashing. This room is very dark, I've realised. Maybe I'll turn the brightness up. AlphaTauri, again, not really a factor. Kvyat scored a point. He finished ahead of Gasly. That's what you can really say about it. That's about where you'd expect him to be. So Renault, they look much better this year. They were racy. And they were right at the top of the midfield. They can't seem to keep that performance going over a whole race, though. Ricciardo did a good job. He was on a weird tyre strategy. That makes no sense to me. Especially when he pitted at the same time as Perez, who was on softs, or super softs, whatever it was. Softer tyres. And they came out at the same time and Ricciardo's tyres went off faster. They both scored points now. Ocon retired with a cooling issue. Last week it was Ricciardo retiring with a cooling issue. This is an improvement from last year when they were sort of the middle of the midfield, if that makes sense. They were not really challenging for 5th or 6th place. They were sort of finishing 10th and 9th, and as if they finished at all. This year they are really, really in there with McLaren and Racing Point. Who are my next one? Stroll had a good race. He was there pretty much the whole time. Pulled off a couple of good overtakes. Perez was amazing. Perez is my joint driver of the day because he pulled off some classy overtakes. He looked fantastic. This is the Perez that should have been signed by a top team a few years ago. He really, really knows how to make his car last. Great for strategies for the team. He can overtake, he can attack. He's got a lot of experience now, and he has formed into a brilliant driver, and no big team will ever touch him. And that is a great, great shame, because he really deserves it. He's been very patient. He's always performed with lower teams. I think he's one of the few guys on the grid you can say that about consistently. But Perez, I think his time has passed. I don't think Mercedes are going to come calling anytime soon. He's got another 2 or 3 years at Racing Point, Aston Martin. If they can continue to give him this level of car and he can continue getting good results, it'll be a good way to see out his career. But he can look back and say, actually, I deserved more. I was not given the opportunities I should have been given. 1 year in a shitty McLaren in 2013 was not enough. He could have been a race winner. Could have probably been a world champion. Lance Stroll, he's doing fine. I don't think he's anything special, but he's got better at just being there. Scoring points, putting his car in a place where he can challenge and attack, and you see a better side of him. If he can keep that up, I'll stop making fun of him for being a pay driver. McLaren, continuing their upward trend. Their race pace was a little bit off. I think Sainz was 3rd on the grid? 4th on the grid? Can't remember. But he was challenging Verstappen at the first corner. They haven't got the race pace of the top cars, but 1 lap pace they definitely have. Sainz, I don't think strategy worked his way. He dropped down the field, but he scored points, and that's important for McLaren. He got fastest lap, which McLaren now have both of for the first 2 races. But Lando Norris was the race pace of the top cars, but 1 lap pace they definitely have. Sainz, I don't think strategy worked his way. He dropped down the field, but he scored points, and that's important for McLaren. He got fastest lap, which McLaren now have both of for the first 2 races. But Lando Norris was my other top joint driver. He was absolutely fantastic today. Did well in qualifying, got his grid penalty. Waited till like the last 10 or so laps, but when Stroll dive bombed Ricciardo, pushed them both wide, Norris was there to capitalise. He got past Perez on the last lap because Perez was damaged, which I'll get to in a minute. He got 5th place. He is 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. This is only his 2nd year. He is a fantastic young driver. If McLaren continue their rise, Lando Norris is going to do very, very well for the next couple of years. Eventually, hopefully, McLaren can get back to the top. Lando Norris might be in a position to challenge for wins. We'll never know. Well, we will know. In time, we will know. Who else? Red Bull. Well, Albon managed not to get knocked out of the race by Hamilton this week. Perez almost did it for him, but Albon survived and finished 4th and scored points. He is so far behind Verstappen, though. It's embarrassing. I don't know who's driving the car at the level the car is at, because you have Albon, who's sort of just above the midfield runners, and Verstappen, who's just behind the top drivers, Mercedes. But the gap between them is massive. It was growing over the race. Doesn't look good for Albon. But if he's driving the car where it should be, then Verstappen is driving the wheels off the damn thing. Probably disappointed to retire last week. This week he was on a mission. He did well to hold Bottas off as long as he did. But no one has the pace to keep up with Mercedes now. I don't know if they've taken a step forward or everyone else has taken a step back, or maybe this track just suited their setup this year. But Red Bull had no answer. Nothing Verstappen could have done to stop Bottas getting past in the end. It's bad for motor racing when you have a team so far ahead of everyone else. And honestly, at this point, Mercedes are by far the most dominant manufacturer in the sport's history. Don't care what you say. Ferrari, Michael Schumacher, that was 5 years of dominance, yes. This is now 7, maybe 8. 2014, I suppose. So 6. This will be the 7th year. But there's been nothing like it. Even in there was bad years in the Ferrari era where you'd have one other driver win a race. You'd get like Montoya in a McLaren, or Montoya in a Williams, or Ralf Schumacher would get a win. But it was mostly like Michael Schumacher would take 10 wins and be 6 other races. Barrichello would win like 4 of the other runs. This is just as bad in that sense, but I don't think Ferrari were this far ahead of people. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. I mean, there were bad races, but not this consistently. Like, just destroying everyone in the field. When you think about it, it took both Mercedes having mechanical issues, being on older tyres than the car behind them, and a safety car for Alexander Albon to get close enough to crash into Hamilton or the other way around. If that's what it takes for the best car in the field to be a match for the rest of the field, something is wrong. It shouldn't be that difficult. We needed the new regulations as soon as possible, because this era of Formula 1 has been terrible. It's not entertaining. With motorsport, you want stakes, surely. You want something to be happening all throughout the year. You don't want to say after the second round, well, it's one of the Mercedes drivers, probably Hamilton. Where's the excitement in that? Unless they're going to start crashing into each other or blowing up every race, no one stands a chance against Mercedes. And now the regulations aren't changing next year. No one stands a chance against them next year either. And as it seems, everyone else is going backwards. So it'll get even further distance between the cars. As of that, this race was not as interesting as it was last week. But last week was kind of a mental crash fest. Lots of breakdowns. First race back. This one, apart from the Ferraris at the start, Ocon broke down. We saw some great overtaking from Perez and Norris. Some very close battles in the midfield. The midfield has got interesting because McLaren, Racing Point and Renault seem to be around about the same place. McLaren maybe slightly ahead. Albon drifts back into that midfield quite a lot. The Ferraris, if they can stay in the race, can probably get mixed up in that as well. AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo, they can probably push themselves into it. So it's a stacked midfield. Mercedes way out in front. Red Bull's probably just behind. Williams and Haas is probably the furthest back. Everyone else is sort of getting congested in that middle bit. That makes it interesting because that'll be close racing. It's a shame we've lost a lot of really good tracks. I was looking forward to Vietnam and the Dutch Grand Prix coming back, and losing things like Monaco is really weird on a Formula 1 calendar. We've got 2 races at Silverstone. To me, the modern Silverstone is not an interesting circuit. I think 2 races in a row. We've had it in Austria. At Silverstone, they could do 2 different track formats. It's enough. Do something. 70th anniversary Grand Prix, so run the old Silverstone circuit if you still can. I think they probably have changed it too much. You might not be able to. But just run 2 weeks of Silverstone. Do 2 different track layouts. I don't think you can do that at Austria. I don't think there's another track layout. There might be. Am I remembering it wrong? I'm pretty sure every race at Austria I've seen is the track we see the Grand Prix cars on. But Silverstone, you can do something different, and they should. Other than that, I don't really have many more points to make. Racing Point got their brake ducts impounded, so they might lose their places, which would be a shame because they both drove so well. Other than that, Hungary next week, I can't see anyone getting close to Mercedes. The track might allow Verstappen to get closer if he can maybe get pole. He might be able to hold him off, but I doubt it. Bottas, he's not someone like... He doesn't really do... I don't think he's ever done well at Hungary. Maybe he has won a race there. Don't think he has. But I'm expecting Hamilton from Bottas and Verstappen. Again. And everyone else miles behind somewhere. It's... I can be surprised. The first race was surprising. And that's what we got to hope for. Thank you for watching. I'm going to try and upload some content as long as we have internet. I'm also doing this around kids now, and it's hard because I quite like going to bed. But if I can make videos, I will. So thank you for watching. This has been a bit all over the place. I'm quite tired. Remember to subscribe. This room is really dark. Thanks for watching.